like to call this meeting to order and welcome everyone this evening to the February 18th meeting of the Williamson County Board of Education. Before we get started, I'd like to ask you to please silence or turn off your cell phones. I'd also like to thank Officers Dominic Calvani and Rick Dickel for being here this evening to provide our security. I'd like to ask everyone to please stand and join Board Member Ken Peterson in the pledge, and please remain standing for a moment of silence. Pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Thank you. You may be seated. Before we approve the agenda this evening, we have, board members, you have an amended agenda at your place. And we have a request from Mr. Peterson to move item 1D, which is the approval of the family tuition charge for 2013-14, to off the consent agenda. So that item, we will move it, and it will be item 4E, and that is page number 15. So that will move, and that will be your new item 4E. Also, we need to remove item D1. This is on page 57. We are removing that from this evening agenda.
Read it out because the new one we got already has everything.
Okay, excuse me. I'm looking off of an old agenda. That's already removed. Okay, thank you. So that item has already been removed from the agenda that you have at your place this evening. So the only change from the agenda that you have before you this evening is item 1D is now item 15E. Excuse me, 4E on page 15. Are there any other corrections before we approve the agenda? Mr. Peterson? No. Would someone like to make a motion? Motion for Mr. Welch.
Second.
Second for Mr. Hullett. All in favor? Any opposed? Okay, thank you. As part of that approval, we approved on the consent the minutes from the January 22nd, 2013 meeting. We approved board policy revisions for second reading. Mr. Anderson, who sits to my right, is the timekeeper, and he has some cue cards to keep you on task. So the first individuals, it's a group that we have this evening here from Page High School. They are members of the FFA. If you'd please come to the podium.
Good evening, I'm Miranda Groves. My fellow members and I represent the 75 members of the Page FFA chapter, the over 13,500 members of the Tennessee FFA Association, and the over 500,000 members of the National FFA organization. We are here before you tonight to kick off the yearly celebration of National FFA Week. Each year, coinciding with George Washington's birthday, FFA members across the country celebrate our organization by fun activities and games, educational presentations, and advocacy meetings. Our goal this week and every day is to develop a student's potential for premier leadership, personal growth, and career success through agriculture education courses.
Agriculture education courses have been in high school since 1917, and the FFA has been established since 1928. This year, Tennessee will celebrate its 85th state FFA convention. At this convention, 20-page FFA members will participate in competitions, receive awards, and vote on issues facing our members. We are proud to report that we are ranked in the top 4% of all chapters nationwide based on our activities, both inside and outside the classroom. We also boast 100% membership and high ranking in many regional and state competitions in the past year.
One such competition or career development event, as well as they call them, is the Agricultural Issues Forum. This event allows our team to research a controversial agricultural topic, develop a presentation showing the pros for horse owners who use soaring and other controversial means to develop special gates.
You may be surprised to learn that FFA members are not all farmers, and many have plans to be a production agriculturist. What we all share is a love of the land and animals and an interest in feeding and growing population. American agriculturists produce more food more efficiently on less land now than before, and we are proud to discover how we can continue this legacy. At Page High School, members take a range of classes from small animal care to veterinary science, where we can learn practical, real-world skills to make us better prepared once we leave Page High seniors.
We thank you for allowing us to begin our celebration of FFA Week at this meeting. If you're interested in supporting FFA locally, we encourage you to visit Tractor Supply Company and purchase a $1 FFA emblem at the checkout. Your contribution will join the others that allow the National FFA organization to award over $2.1 million each year in scholarships to deserving seniors. I myself have applied and am awaiting eagerly to hear in May if I was lucky enough to be a recipient. Thank you again for your time, and thank you for your continued support of not only agriculture education, FFA, but all career and technical programs in Williamson County.
Thank you. Next on the agenda is Daniela Kuntz.
I'm Daniela Kuntz. I live at 132 Calvary Drive, Franklin, Tennessee 37064. Once more, I, Daniela Kuntz, and some members of the recently formed group Parents for Student Safety are coming before you to state that our children are still at a very high risk of being exposed to bioaccumulative chemicals and pesticides while they are at school each day. The likelihood for them to contract cancer, heart disease, brain damage, asthma, autism down the road is very real. We should all work together to protect the health of our students, teachers, and staff in our schools. There seems to be no school official in our district or within the individual schools with the needed expertise to thoroughly check that the chemicals in use are being applied by recommendations stated on the manufacturer's safety data sheets, and it seems that our schools and the school district assume that the contractors or unlicensed and insufficiently trained people are proceeding in a safe manner, and it is left up to them on how they go about it. Not only does the Williamson County Schools District and schools fail to monitor these chemicals and on how these contractors are applying them around our children, but the district withholds requested information from citizens who wish to review public open records to get to the bottom of it all on top of it. We ask the school district to comply with Open Records Act and make available all requested papers. Make our persistent chemical exposure concerns an agenda item for discussion with us. Hire a chemical safety review expert with full inclusion and participation by citizens like us. Thank you.
Thank you. Next is Mr. Bruce Wood.
Thank you very much, Chairman Anderson, members of the board, Superintendent Looney, and members of the staff. My name is Bruce Wood, P.O. Box 158752, Nashville, Tennessee. I'm the elected president of BURNT, a 24-year-old environmental group. We've worked on pesticides for years. Spraying in Nashville schools and had a much different progress than we've had here so far, and also mosquitoes. Thing you have to understand is that pesticides are bioaccumulative in the bodies of people, especially women. So someone gets what appears to be an innocuous exposure now, then they go into Kroger's and they don't even know they're getting an exposure, and then in college it might tip over. I've heard, this is anecdotal, but that there was a major exposure during a girls' basketball team. The food, even if Williamson County handles pesticides perfectly, people are going to be exposed before the school bell rings from food and water and other sources. I think you have an obligation to rigorously examine the chemicals in your schools, and I've come out here and we've asked to see the maintenance contract or the janitorial contract, and they say, no, we can't produce that. Well, hey, if you're running a $500 million endeavor and you can't produce the maintenance contract, I would take a look at that as the school board members. So my final point is that you have a problem. I think you should look to the citizens to help solve that problem. Thank you very much.
Thank you. Next is John Carter.
This is a little intimidating. I'm John Carter, and usually my audience is much smaller, and yeah. So we are here to ask you to revisit the policy on teacher tuition from out-of-county residents. I have a 1-year-old and I live in Spring Hill, but I'm not a resident, and this is Sorrel Dugan, and she also has 2 young children. We are both teachers at Winstead Elementary School, and we believe that allowing non-resident teachers will allow the county to attract the best and the brightest teachers, even though we do represent a very minority group of individuals. We do think that everyone is on the same page with the county commission, or we've seen a lot of support with the board members and with WCEA, and we would like just to open the discussion again and hopefully repeal the tuition. Thank you for your time.
Mr. Carter, could you please provide us with your address?
Sure. It's 3439 Petty Lane, and it's actually Sorrel is in Spring Hill. I'm in Columbia, Tennessee.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you.
And I'm Sorrel Dugan. I'm also a teacher at Winstead Elementary. I just want to say thank you for letting us come here tonight and just to speak so our voices are heard. I've emailed almost all of you, as well as the county commissioners. Got the chance to speak with Dr. Looney earlier this year. And we just are hoping that we can bring this policy of out-of-county tuition for employees, that we can just bring it back up. I know it's been a long-standing policy, but we just hope to review it. I know that's going to take a lot of number crunching, but there are counties all over that are making this happen, and it's just making happier teachers, which in turn makes happier students. I've invested 12 years of my life to Williamson County Schools. I love the kids. I love that my kids are going to Williamson County Schools, but I just would like to keep my paycheck the way it is. So I thank you for your time, and we hope to get to talk more about this in the future. Thank you.
Thank you, Ms. Dugan. Could you also provide us with your address?
Yes, my address is 3613 Artesian Way, Spring Hill.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Okay, that concludes public comment for this evening. Next item on the agenda is the superintendent's report. Dr. Looney.
Thank you, Madam Chair and board members. Good evening. It's good to see everybody tonight. We had a wonderful day of teacher learning today in all of our schools. It was a professional development day, and I've received many wonderful reports from individual schools on how that went. I would like to take just a moment to use the superintendent's report to ask both legal staff and the director of maintenance to give the board an update and a status report as it relates to the public records request that was referred to earlier in the evening, and as to whether or not we're complying with EPA regulations as it relates to how we use disinfectants in our schools. So, Mr. Goldman, could you speak to the fact, speak to the concern about whether or not we're honoring public records requests?
Well, and you as board members actually have a copy of a letter from Mr. Squires in front of you that details his response to the public records request from Ms. Kuntz. And I've looked at that and have concluded that we are fully in compliance with the state law regarding open records. I will also tell you that we've actually gone beyond the requirements of the law, and that has included meetings with maintenance personnel all the way up to Dr. Looney that we've given these individuals time to speak to us. So from my review of both the law and the substance of how we've responded, we are beyond compliance.
Thank you. And board members, we do use disinfectants in our schools on surfaces that students contact. However, we do think it's important that we follow established regulations, and EPA is responsible for establishing regulations that govern how we do that business. And as you know, Mr. Samuels is charged with the maintenance and upkeep of our facilities. So, Mr. Samuels, could you speak to whether or not, in your opinion, we're following EPA regulations as it relates to how we disinfect surfaces in our school buildings?
Yes, sir. To the best of my knowledge and from what I have read on the material safety data sheets as well as the label on some of the particular products that are being discussed, we are in compliance.
Thank you. At this point in time, I don't usually individually call folks up to be recognized, but a number of months ago, I was in discussion with several staff members and administrators about reaching the board's goal of becoming nationally recognized in the arts. And so we came up with the idea to take our Bring Your Own Technology initiative and mesh it together with the notion of the arts. And we created a challenge for our students. And the challenge was for a student in our school system to develop an iPad app or a smartphone app that would help our students remember and manipulate the 100 most important works of art that they could come up with. And I'm proud tonight to let you know that we have a winner, and that winner happens to be an 8th grade student at Sunset Middle School. This particular student developed a smartphone application with technology about the 100 most important pieces of artwork from their perspective. And in recognition of that hard work, I want to honor that student with a personal contribution of a $500 scholarship. So that's not taxpayer money, that's courtesy of the superintendent. Of course, you can chip in if you want. I would like to call that individual up and be recognized, and I'd also like his parents to stand up. We honor you as well. And so, if I can pronounce your name correctly, young man, please come forward and be recognized. Tejas Manahar. Come on up to the microphone. Congratulations. And his teacher, come on up here. And parents, please. Congratulations.
Thank you
That was
very
a
much.
good investment for me.
Thank
Very
you.
proud of you.
I'm glad for the opportunity too.
Where are you going to go to college? You know yet? Turn around. Come on up here, parents.
Well, I want to be a doctor.
You want to be a doctor?
A neurosurgeon.
A neurosurgeon. Well, you're off to a good start.
I would like to go to like Johns Hopkins University.
Fantastic.
Okay.
They're growing well here, don't they?
All
Look
right,
at the
and
camera.
everybody smile. Thank you.
You gotta get one. Thank you. Congratulations. Mom and Dad were very excited. Madam Chair, if I could only have been that bright when I was an 8th grader.
I think we all may feel the same way, Dr. Looney.
At this time, I'd like to ask Mrs. Birdsong to come forward. We have a number of additional outstanding scholars and individuals to recognize tonight. Mrs. Birdsong.
It is quite an exciting evening because, ladies and gentlemen, we are honoring our district record-setting number of 34 National Merit finalists, not semifinalists, finalists. So we are going to go through every one of them, and we are going to start at Brentwood High School with Miss Natalie Bennett, and then Elizabeth Cowan at Brentwood. Brentwood had 12 National Merit finalists: Jonathan Kreitz, Jonathan Decker, Luke Donahoe, C. Chi Fan, Urtica Fazili, Ford Galen, Caitlin Pickard, Alex Spahn, John Stauffer, and Taylor Streety, all from Brentwood High School. 12 from Brentwood. We also have a National Merit finalist from Centennial High School, Micah Gett. We also have a National Merit finalist from Fairview High School, Jay Christ. We have 3 National Merit finalists from Franklin High School, Mackenzie Bottoms, Ashley DePerry, and Mary Ruth Robinson. We have 1 National Merit finalist from Independence High School, Duncan Brocklehurst. We have 3 from Page High School, Delaney Amatrudo, Caroline Hill, and George Owen. And ladies and gentlemen, we have 13 from Ravenwood High School: Amrina Med, Jesse Coker, Francis Ding, Paul Drexler, Mitchell Gordon, James Goss, Vivian Howe, Matthew Hoke, Charlene Hong, Roshni Kaushik, Michael Lee, Benjamin Stadnick, and Eric Yang. Again, that's 34 National Merit finalists. We talked about Frances, but let's talk about Frances again at Ravenwood High School. She is the Tennessee winner of the Siemens Foundation Award for Advanced Placement Scholarship based on her performance on AP exams in math and science. Over at Ravenwood, Gene Lee, you've heard his name before, National Classical Etymology Exam gold medal. Jason Neighbors is his teacher. And then let's talk about the arts, because Landon Meldrum at Independence High School is the Tennessee Thespian president for the 2013-2014 school year. Rebecca Williams is his teacher. Gene Lee, well, yes, you heard his name before. He is a member of the National Honor Orchestra from Ravenwood. Allison Cohen, his instructor. And then we have 2 students from Ravenwood who are in the National Honor Band, Danielle Mang and Laura Egged. And Mark Kinzer is their director. Now, let's talk about Scholastic Art and Writing Gold Key Award winners. 16 of them across the district. And you guys, look at this one, Brentwood Middle School. We have a middle school student who brought home the gold, Gavin Bain, Brentwood Middle, Maggie Tucker, and he earned his gold medal for sculpture. At Brentwood High School, we had 2 winners, Zoe Schlachter. You have seen Zoe's work before. She won for art portfolios, and Blair Butler won for drawing. Their teacher is Barbara Bullard. At Centennial High School, Curtis Evers won for drawing, Betty McIntyre, his teacher. Franklin High School had several winners, William Arrington for drawing, Laura Rylander, his teacher, Quentin Eastridge From Franklin in design, Melissa Estes is his teacher. Abby Lewis. For drawing, Michael Boyle is her teacher. Vika Schwer is for photography, and Melissa Estes again. Her teacher, Samantha Sowell. For drawing, Laura Rylander, again her teacher. And Coley Spencer for photography, Melissa Estes, her teacher. And Independence is also being recognized, Charlotte LaCroix. Okay, now this is a little bit ridiculous, but Charlotte won 4. Count them, 4 gold keys. She actually won a really huge honor called the American Vision Award, and then she won 3 gold awards in photography. Stephanie Pruitt is her teacher. We had 2 students from Middle College win awards, Carson Murdoch in painting and Samantha Starr in painting and drawing. Samantha won 2 gold awards. Jennifer Baltimore is their teacher. And Raymond Wood wants to be recognized as well. Lydia Hand won for drawing. Diane Taylor is her teacher. Morgan Jones won for photography. Debbie Chesser is her teacher. And Ashley Schilling for drawing. Diane Taylor, her teacher. And then we have 1 student spotlight, and that is for Brentwood High School, who is recognized as the Outstanding Clean Air Partner Award. And there you see teacher Kevin Kydell, principal, and Doug Anderson, who is the ecology teacher at Brentwood High School. Congratulations to all of our award winners tonight. Big round of applause, please.
Thank you, Ms. Birdsong. I would like to just make a comment about the 34 finalists. First of all, I'd like to reinforce that is a record for this district, and we are tremendously proud of those students. But at the same time, they all had dozens of outstanding teachers, and so I want to publicly thank the teachers that have served these boys and girls so well to get them to a place where they're recognized on a national stage for their scholarship. So thank you for allowing me to say that. That completes my report.
Thank you, Dr. Loney, and thank you, Ms. Birdsong. Next item on the agenda is Board Chairman's Report. I'd like to remind board members that this week are the last 2 of our Let's Talk School meetings. Tomorrow morning we have one at the Professional Development Room in the Maintenance Building at 1761 West Main Street, and that's from 10 until 11:30. And our final meeting is at Page High School on Thursday evening from 6 to 7:30. Also, we have a pretty full schedule of meetings that are listed on your agenda under scheduled meetings, so please take note of that, because we have a budget work session on March the 2nd, followed by a special called meeting, and a special called meeting on March the 6th, where our advanced ed team will give us the information about their visit to the district and our accreditation. We have a number of principals and staff in the audience. If you would stand and let us welcome you this evening. Thank you so much for being here. We always appreciate your attendance and support. And that concludes my report, and we will move on to the first item of business, which is under new business, 4A, board policy revisions for first reading. This is on page 45. It's 6.502, enrollment of foreign exchange students. Dr. Looney.
Thank you, Madam Chair and board members. This is the first reading of this policy. I do recommend approval at this time.
Someone like to make a motion? Motion from Ms. Mills. Second from Ms. Hammond. Is there any discussion? Are we ready to vote?
Your vote is 12 yes, 0 no.
Motion passes. Next item is 4B. This is 2012-13 General Purpose School Fund Budget Amendments. The first one is located on page 49. It's the SRO program. Dr. Looney.
Thank you, Madam Chair and board members. I do recommend approval of this resolution. In essence, we don't have sufficient funds to cover the cost of SRO, and we need to make this adjustment. Mrs. Holman is here to answer any additional questions you may have.
Someone like to make a motion? Motion for Mr. Hullett. Second for Mr. McLaughlin. Is there any discussion? Are we ready to vote?
Your vote is 12 yes, 0 no.
Motion passes. Next item is 4B2, special education expenses. These are located on page 50. Dr. Looney?
Thank you, Madam Chair and board members. As you're aware, we develop a budget with planned expenditures in the area of special education, but as new students arrive to the district that have unique needs, there becomes a need sometimes to contract for additional services, either through private placement of individual students and/or services such as OT and PT therapists working with individual kids. This money is to provide those appropriate services as required by their IEPs. I do recommend your approval.
Someone like to make a motion? Motion for Ms. Mills. Second for Mr. Peterson. Is there any discussion? We're ready to vote?
Your vote is 12 yes, 0 no.
Motion passes. Next item is 4B3, major categories transfer. This is located on page 51. Dr. Looney?
Thank you, Madam our Chair and board members. This really is a process of becoming more transparent. As you know, we have negotiated contracts with WCA in the past, and certain individuals in the organization were paid a supplement to do those negotiations, and I just felt like it was cleaner and more transparent if we put it all in the same line item. So this is not raising anybody's pay, it's just putting in the right categories for transparency's sake. Mrs. Holman is here to answer any additional questions you may have.
Someone like to make a motion? Motion for Mr. Welch. Second for Ms. Vogt. Is there any discussion? Are we ready to vote?
Your vote is 12 yes, 0 no.
Motion passes. Next item is 4B4. This is the Ravenwood High School roof. This is located on page 53. Dr. Looney?
Thank you, Madam Chair and board members. I'm not sure this requires an explanation other than most of the work is complete. Mr. Samuels' crew did an outstanding job of responding to that emergency situation. We had school the very next day. I'm very pleased with the work that they've done. And so this is the bill associated with it, or part of the bill.
Someone like to make a motion? Move to approve. Motion for Ms. Hammond. Second for Mr. McLaughlin. Is there any discussion? Are we ready to vote?
Your vote is 12 yes, 0 no.
Motion passes. Next item is 4C. This is the authorization for consultant agreement not to exceed $30,000. This information is located on page 55. Dr. Looney?
Thank you, Madam Chair and board members. We've had lots of discussion about this particular item. As you know, I'm not a politician, I'm a schoolman, and we have a number of issues that are making their way through the Tennessee legislature that are a significant concern to this board based on the feedback that you've given me. Many of our partner school districts have consultants that work on their behalf on the Hill, and I'm asking that we try to level the playing field to make sure that the interests of Williamson County Schools are represented. I do recommend your approval.
Someone like to make a motion? Motion for Mr. Wimberly. Second from Ms. Mills. Mr. McLaughlin?
I wanted to speak on this because I got a lot of calls, a lot of communication today from concerned citizens within the county. You know, we had this discussion at the work session. We basically brought up the fact that there's 90 legislative bills on education that is out there that we dealt with very few of them to be able to come through resolutions, which we'll be dealing with tonight. The fact that other counties have lobbyists and that they're going out and putting forth bills before the Congress and the House and the Senate in regards to this that affect our county in a negative fashion. This is the things we talked about on the work session. We've talked about a Saturday or so ago. But what has come forth seemingly is the fact that it has turned in the fact that the lobbyist is only for fighting charter schools. It's the furthest thing from the truth. A lot of the things that I've received today, I would like to have more time to be able to do it, but it's up for a vote tonight. And you know, I think that I do agree that we shouldn't be using taxpayer money to go out and fight things on the Hill. But unfortunately, we have to be able to compete to be able to keep our school intact, keep the funding coming in, keep being things that are going to be harmful to our county. And so I have to deal with this tonight, but I think it's unfortunate that it's turned into something that wasn't even our discussion on Saturday.
Mr. Welch?
Thank you. Tim, I share a lot of the same things that you. There's a certain distaste to the concept of hiring a lobbyist with taxpayer funds, and I'll agree with you on that one. But as I started going through kind of the decision process on this, I thought about, well, what is the alternative here? We could either choose really three courses of action on this. The first is continue to have our superintendent, our CEO, serve as our lobbyist, in which case I think we're using him in a very inefficient role, one that he is not best suited for, and at the opportunity cost of not having him run our school system. So that's certainly not an ideal situation. The second alternative was to simply not participate in any legislative activities. And as you mentioned, there are other districts, other legislators from outside of our immediate area who on a regular basis are putting forth legislative and proposals and bills that would have a very negative connotation on the school district, both in terms of adding cost to what our taxpayers would have to pay for. So in that sense, I see this as a cost saving, as an investment that will pay off down the road immediately, and also as something that will cut off legislation that is harmful to the quality of education that we are providing in the classrooms. If we were talking about hiring an employee within the central office, we were talking about a software program, something along those lines that would do something very similar, I wouldn't hesitate at all. It's really just the negative connotation that goes along with that, which is very real. I wish we did not have to do this philosophically, ideologically. I'm opposed to this, but unfortunately, we don't live in a fantasy land here in Disneyland. We live in the real world, and unfortunately, this is the environment that we live in. So the third option is, of course, is that we hire this lobbyist, that we hire this consultant to speak on our behalf, to represent the interests of this board, but ultimately to represent the interests of the taxpayers of this county and the children in our school system. And so for those reasons, I am going to support this motion right here today.
Ms. Vogt?
I want to echo Mr. McLaughlin and Mr. Welch's sentiments. I too have some discomfort with this, but I did want to get it clarified for the record that if this is voted tonight, this would be for this year, and then subsequent years to follow, we would come back and it would be reapproved, or it would be brought back before us. It wouldn't be a continuing thing going forward. It would just be something that we're deciding for year by year, because maybe in future years we won't have as many bills coming through the legislature. So could you answer that, Dr. Linney?
Yes, ma'am, that's a very fair question, and thank you for asking it. The answer is yes. These monies, $30,000 in all, which is actually to hire 2 lobbyists or 2 consultants, so $15,000 each, is for this session, and its focus is very simple: to maintain local control on as many educational issues as we possibly can. Because this board has said that you believe in small government and local control. And we have proof in Williamson County that it works. And so in some respects, this is an offensive move rather than a defensive move from the board's position to try to continue to promote high-quality schools the way that we operate them.
I'm comfortable going along with this evening. I just wanted to be clear that every time it comes up, we will be taking an action if it comes up in future years.
Yes, ma'am. It's my prayer that we don't have to do this annually.
Thank you.
Is there any further discussion? Are we ready to vote?
Your vote is 11 yes, 1 abstain.
Motion passes. Next item on the agenda is item 4D1. These are resolutions for consideration. The first item is page 57. It's opposing House Bill 0941, Senate Bill 1175. Dr. Looney?
Thank you, Madam Chair and board members. This is one of the bills that we had a good bit of discussion on at the work session. This is a bill that I believe that you stand in opposition to, one that your consultants will work on the Hill, and Mr. Squires is here to give a brief summary of what the bill does and then answer any questions that you may have. Mr. Squires.
Thank you, Dr. Looney, Madam Chair, board members. Actually, the title of the resolution is fairly self-explanatory. The bill is fairly simple. Would require an LEA to adopt a policy allowing for open enrollment if transportation is provided for a student, and that is the basic effect of the bill. Transportation is required, good behavior, that sort of thing for the student to stay at the school, but it's essentially a bill that requires you to adopt open enrollment for a period of time during the enrollment process. My sense of our discussion that Saturday meeting that Mr. McLaughlin mentioned was that you were in opposition to that. Proposed language is before you in the resolution.
Someone like to make a motion? Motion to by Mr. Welch. Second by Mr. Mesra. Mr. Wimberly?
Mr. Squires, let me make sure I've got this straight. When you say open zone, open enrollment, that means that outside the county, correct? This has no effect of what happens within the county?
No, it is internal to the county. The language in the bill is this. A period of time during which parents or guardians may choose from a list of the LEA schools with available space and request a transfer without being required to provide reasons for their requests. So the open enrollment period is for all of the schools within Williamson County Schools. It is not for external enrollment.
Okay, thank you.
If I could just follow up, in essence, what that does is does away with your attendance zone lines for an open period where parents could choose which school that they would send their child to obviously that would have a huge impact on lots of services across the district.
Mr. Welch.
Dr. Lee, I want to quibble with you on one description there. I think it would open up the opportunity for some parents to choose, but I think by and large it was also close the opportunity for other parents, and it would destroy community schools. We start seeing kind of I think anarchy and chaos would probably be the best idea to describe it. A lot of things where we start getting athletic schools over academic schools as first priority, and a lot of other unintended consequences of it. So I just want to make sure we don't frame this as we're in opposition to parental choice, as we are so much in support of quality schools, community schools for all of our parents and students.
Very well said.
Thanks, sir.
Mr. Gregory.
Thank you. I thought it'd be best to speak to this on this first one as we go through these, because it applies to most of them. These people who promote these bills on the Hill, they're not, crazy people, for the most part. This may be very needed in some areas of the state. And so when a legislator promotes a bill up there, it may be, his district may be screaming for it, may need it desperately. That's another reason that we need, representation to protect what we're doing here. These things may, once again, help someone else, but hurt us in what we're trying to achieve here in Williamson County. So once again, as we go through these, a lot of them will sound really out of like right field stuff, but if you traced it back and looked at the legislator, where they're from, what's going on there, it could be very, very applicable to their situation.
Is there anyone else that wishes to speak? Are we ready to vote?
Your vote is 12 yes, 0 no.
Motion passes. Next item is 4D2, supporting House Bill 0446, Senate Bill 1018. Dr. Looney.
Thank you, Madam Chair and board members. Once again, this is based on conversation that we had at our work session. Mr. Squires is here to provide a brief summary of what the bill does and answer any legal questions that you may have.
Thank you, Dr. Looney, Madam Chair, board members. From our discussion, you may recall this is the House Bill 0446, Senate Bill 1018. This bill provides for, in the charter school application process, once the State Board of Education has reviewed a charter school application that has been either granted or denied at the local level, the decision of the State Board of Education, this bill provides for judicial review of the state's determination of that question. That option currently does not exist. This bill would provide for that option to go into court and have that decision reviewed.
And just for clarity's sake, I'm asking that you support this particular bill so that if the state board overrules an LEA as it relates to a charter school decision, that there is another appellate body, and that would be the local chancery court. I'm asking that you support this resolution.
Would someone like to make a motion? Motion from Mr. Hullett. Second from Ms. Vogt. Is there any discussion? Are we ready to vote?
Your vote is 12 yes, 0 no.
Motion passes. Next item is 4D3. This is on page 61. It's opposing House Bill 0672, Senate Bill 0692. Dr. Looney.
Thank you, Madam Chair and board members. I want to just, as an example, show how this bill would play out if it became law. The bill essentially requires the school district to make available any existing properties, including properties, school buildings that are not completely full, that have capacity, open that up to charter school providers. And so if you use Summit High School as an example, you know we open our high schools with 9th and 10th grade. So for the first couple of years, there would be plenty of extra space in that building for a charter school provider to come in and operate. And I professionally don't think that's in the best interest of Williamson County Schools, given that we're a growing community. And when we construct a school such as Summit, we actually plan on filling it up in a short amount of time. So Bill, I hope I didn't steal your thunder, but if you could provide a summary of Bill, and he's available to answer any questions.
Thank you, Dr. Looney. Board members, you may recall from the discussion, this is the bill. Actually, Dr. Looney has given you a pretty good explanation. The bill, if this became law, would require you to provide a list each year of, as described or defined in this bill, underutilized or vacant properties. The bill also would require you to make those properties available to charter providers, charter school providers. And then there's a fairly extensive process by which either the Department of Ed or the comptroller can essentially force you into an agreement to do that. And there is even, I believe, an arbitration provision if that doesn't work as well. So actually, Dr. Looney has given you a pretty good explanation, but my recollection from your discussion of this is that you oppose this and propose languages before you.
Would someone like to make a motion?
So moved.
Motion for Ms. Vogt. Second from Mr. Wimberly. Is there any discussion? Are we ready to vote?
Your vote is 12 yes, 0 no.
Motion passes. Next item on the agenda is 4D4. This is on page 63. This is opposing House Bill 0911 and Senate Bill 0883. Dr. Looney?
As I begin to make this recommendation, I'm reminded of Mr. Gregory's comments, and I think this bill is a good example of that. This bill essentially gives school teachers the authority to remove a student from their classroom permanently, even after the principal has provided disciplinary action. As you know, we have very well-behaved students in Williamson County Schools, and a protocol and a process for dealing with disruptive students. And in my opinion, this would not be good for our school system. Mr. Squires is here to add any additional details that he might think are important, but I do recommend that you approve our opposition to this bill.
Thank you, Dr. Looney. That's actually, again, a pretty good explanation. I will say the removal is not permanent under all circumstances. There are some provisions. The bill would require a review by Dr. Looney, for instance, of certain disciplinary actions when they occur. There is a provision that allows a teacher to refuse to take a student back under certain circumstances. The discussion, as you may recall from that Saturday meeting, it was that there are already plenty of provisions in the law and in board policy for handling disruptive students. Essentially, this is just unnecessary. And as Dr. Looney has mentioned, we handle disruptive students currently in the school system pretty well. Proposed language is before you.
Would someone like to make a motion? Motion for Ms. Mills. Second for Mr. Mesra. Is there any discussion? Are we ready to vote?
Your vote is 12 yes, 0 no.
Motion passes. Next item on the agenda is 4D5, opposing House Bill 1095, Senate Bill 0018. Dr. Looney?
Thank you, Madam Chair and board members. I certainly received more feedback from students on this particular bill than any bill that I have spoken about tonight. This bill would take away the local board's authority to provide for exam exemptions based on attendance. I recommend that you oppose this bill.
Mr. Squires, did you want to add something to
Sorry,
that?
Bill.
No, Madam Chair.
Okay, thank you. Would someone like to make a motion? Motion from Mr. Gregory.
That was it.
This is second from who? Mr. McLaughlin? Mr. Gregory?
Thank you. This is one I can't imagine where the thought comes from or what it expects to achieve, but we have 3 daughters. 2 of them have been seniors in Williamson County Schools. This is a big deal to those kids. I mean, they count those days. They know how many days they've been gone. They know how many they can miss, and they make the grades to get these exemptions. So I think it's a very valuable tool that we have, and it's a great reward for kids that earn it.
Ms. Vogt?
I wanted to speak a bit, just in case people out there aren't aware of why this would be a bad idea. For Williamson County students, first of all, when you're a senior, sometimes senioritis sets in. And if you're looking at going to have to take the final anyway, then you could presumably make an excuse or some kind of argument to your parents that it would be fine for you to skip a few days. Well, the school system would lose that money for those absences. And as well as our high-performing seniors, if they're taking AP classes, they might not welcome the opportunity to take not 1 final, but 2 finals. Take an AP exam at the end and also so I think this is probably an unintended consequence, and maybe in some districts this was presumed to be necessary, but it would certainly be harmful in Williamson County, I think, in almost all of the high schools.
Yes, ma'am. If I could just add to that, this is a good example of why local control works.
Exactly.
We hold our students accountable for their attendance, for their academic progress, and for discipline. And either one of those things can remove their exemption. But if this bill becomes law, then you lose the right to choose those exemptions.
And what is the grade level that you have to have?
91.
A 91.
Yes.
So again, it's not easy to get this.
No, ma'am.
Mr. Wimberly?
I think you just clarified what I was going to point out is, despite the title being based upon attendance, that they have to be a high-performing student, too.
Is there anyone else that wishes to speak before we vote? Are we ready to vote?
Your vote is 12 yes, 0 no.
Motion passes. Next item is 4D6, supporting House Bill 1112, Senate Bill 1149. Dr. Looney?
Thank you, Madam Chair and board members. This is a little bit more of a complex one, so I'm going to rely on legal to help me out. Mr. Squires.
Thank you, Dr. Looney. Board members, you will recall from our discussion, this is a change in the law that's being proposed right now as to how reductions in force or RIFs work. In the law, they're referred to as abolition of position or the removal of a position because of a decrease in enrollment or for other good reasons. The current proposal before the House and the Senate requires that when that occurs, that the reduction in force or the abolition of the position occur based on teacher effectiveness or employee effectiveness. Current law does not require any particular criteria. Obviously, nothing illegal, no discriminatory reasons or that sort of thing as you choose an employee for the abolition of a position. But the current law, again, does not have a criteria. The one that's being proposed here does require an evaluation of the employee's effectiveness when you're choosing which employee is released. Your discussion that day indicated that you support it. I believe Dr. Linney supports it as well. And there is language before you propose to resolve to that effect.
Someone like to make a motion? Motion from Mr. Gregory. Second. Second from Mr. Hullett. Mr. Welch?
Thank you. Dr. Linney, when we're talking about employee effectiveness, obviously a lot of this legislation, the devil's in the details. Who defines what effectiveness is? Is that the state mandating it, or do we have the authority to set our own rubric?
This particular bill deals with educators, so their effectiveness is measured based on their evaluation, which includes student growth.
Okay.
And so this essentially does away with the traditional practice of LIFO, last in, first out.
Absolutely.
And bases decisions on teacher performance.
Okay, so principal evaluations,
Yes.
TCAP scores,
Yes, sir.
TVAS, what have you. Thanks, sir.
Mr. Gregory?
I'll yield my time to Mr. McLaughlin.
You don't know what I'm going to say yet.
Mr. McLaughlin?
Thank you, Mr. Gregory. No, I would basically like to say, I think that anytime if we're going to build a stronger and stronger school district, that performance has to be one of the issues that is involved. And when we do have a reduction in force, if it's only based on seniority and not on performance, then we're not moving towards that goal. And so I fully support this bill. Any remaining time can go back to Mr. Gregory.
Mr. Anderson?
Yes, I agree with not following a last in, first out. My concern is all the teachers who fall into the category where their evaluation currently is based on the performance of others and not their own performance. So my question would be if there is the need to do that, and in our county, chances that with a growing district are very small unless we drop a program, but you got music teachers, art teachers, PE teachers, kindergarten teachers, et cetera, who do not have their own standalone scores to base that on. How will you go about evaluating that if it's a particular school or program at one school, and yet there may be someone who is not performing at another school when they don't really have their own evaluation?
That's a very good question. So first, we've been the subject of criticism because our TVOS growth scores are exceptionally high. We were the highest moving district in the state, and as a result of that and other metrics, our teachers all had very high evaluation results, 4s and 5s for the most part. And so we were criticized for that, but from my perspective, it was well deserved on our teachers' part. So with respect to your question, it would relate to the principal's judgment. If all the data is equal across the board, which is what's happening in Williamson County, then the principal would have to use their professional judgment to determine other measures and metrics that guide their decisions on performance rather than just last in, first out.
Okay, so we're keeping it more locally based rather than a state model?
Absolutely, yes, sir.
Okay, thank you.
Mr. Gregory, did you have anything you wanted to add before we vote?
No, I'm fine, thank you.
Okay, thank you. Is there anyone else that wishes to speak before we vote? Are we ready to vote?
Your vote is 12 yes, 0 no.
Motion passes. Next item is 4D7. This is on page 69. It's opposing House Bill 0063, Senate Bill 0085. Dr. Looney?
Thank you, Madam Chair and board members. This is a complex bill, and I want to make sure that you understand what my position is. This is a bad bill. This bill does away with both the CFO's office and from the school district side and the county finance office and creates another entity essentially to oversee all of finance for schools and county government. I'm very concerned about this bill and what it would do about our operation efficiency and effectiveness. This, as you know, our budget's about $250 million. The complexities of dealing with that alone are tremendous. If you add that and the county side to the mix, I really just don't see how that could possibly work towards our benefit. You would lose a tremendous amount of local control, as would, from my perspective, the county commission. I'm very concerned about this bill and encourage you to oppose it. Mr. Squires, you're welcome to give an overview at this point in time.
Actually, that's a more than sufficient overview. I will say this bill is fairly complex. As you recall, when we talked about it, it's about 50 pages long or longer. But essentially what Dr. Looney has said is probably the best way to describe the net result of those 50 pages. You all indicated that you oppose it. Proposed language is before you.
Would someone like to make a motion? Motion from Ms. Hammond. Second from Mr. Hullett. Mr. Welch?
Dr. Looney, as this also impacts our county operations beyond Board of Education, have you had conversations about this bill with our county mayor?
Yes, sir, I have.
And what is his opinion on this?
I believe he shares the same sentiment that I do.
That he also opposes this bill being passed?
Yes, sir.
Thank you.
Is there any further discussion? Are we ready to vote?
Your vote is 12 yes, 0 no.
Motion passes. Next item is item 4E. This is approval of family tuition charge for 2013-14. This is located on page 15. Dr. Looney?
Thank you, Madam Chair and board members. Mr. Peterson, I appreciate you taking this off the consent agenda. I will say that I certainly am not a proponent of charging our employees for their children to come to the school system, but this particular issue has a long history in Williamson County, and what I'm asking you to approve tonight is to establish the tuition rate, which is consistent with what we've always done, with the understanding that there's more dialogue to be had with the county commission and others as to whether or not we could get support to do something different. So I am asking that you approve the tuition rate for both employees and for those families that have indications they're going to move to Williamson County. Those are separate rates. I do recommend your approval.
Someone like to make a motion? Motion from Mr. Welch.
Second.
Second from Ms. Mills. Mr. Gregory?
Dr. Looney, would you state the rates for each?
Yes, sir. I'm sorry I didn't do that. Employee rate would be a family rate, not per child, but for the entire family, $3,932 per year. And the rate for families that will be moving into the district, and the way that works is they have to provide evidence that they're actually moving, would be $5,414. There's some logic to the difference. Mrs. Holman Mayfair will be the best person to explain the logic. I would say, before she does that, we have worked to reduce the family tuition rate for our employees to the lowest amount possible. In previous years, there has been some concerns expressed about not charging employees the local tax rate for participation in our school system. Ms. Holman, can you explain the difference between the two?
The way it's always been traditionally arrived at for just the tuition, family tuition rate, is to take all the local taxes, the expenditure side of the debt service that services the school debt, the capital, and any funding source that's local, such as our fund balance. The way we came up with the employee rate was just to take the local taxes, which is the property tax rate and the sales tax collections. So that's how we arrived at the employee rate when we established it. In years past, the employee used to pay the same rate that a family on the outside of the county moving in would pay.
Mr. Peterson?
Yeah, I'm completely opposed to this. I feel like, we've had many discussions over the last, at least the time that I've been on the board, with regards to having incentives and opportunities to bring the best of the best into the fold, into Williamson County, to provide opportunities for us to go out and find those people. And it seems to me that we have educators, and they're doing their job, and they're working hard every day. And it seems to me that it only makes sense to let those individuals bring their families and their children to our schools and allow them the opportunity to bring them it serves the community, it serves the school because it gives them a sense of belonging, provides them with the opportunity to be more involved in the PTOs, it provides them the opportunity to be involved in the communities. Their friends, if they come to our schools, their friends are in our schools. They're going to play sports, you know, in those communities. They're going to go to our McDonald's, you know, on their way home, they're going to shop at our stores. So the fact that the taxes and things like that aren't being brought, you know, I understand the idea of it, but to me, it seems like the teachers deserve this. It seems like that, you know, that ultimately we should be looking for ways to make this happen, rather than voting yes on something that I think that we should really oppose. So.
Mr. Hullett?
Thank you, Pat. Although I realize that we need to, you know, establish this to move forward so that we can get somewhere, the thing that I would hope that we would be very careful and weary of is that we should be aware of avoidance of discussion of issues just because they've been discussed in the past. And some of the things we come across, we talk about, oh, well, that was discussed years ago, or that was discussed here, or that was discussed there. Well, that doesn't mean that we should not discuss it in the future, discuss it in the present, just because it's already been there. So I know that we have to establish this to move forward, but I also think, you know, I agree with Ken. I believe it warrants discussion for the future as well, because I also oppose it as well.
I'd just like to add some clarity. One of the things that we did today is, I believe we distributed the survey today. Jason, is that correct?
It's been finished. I'm not sure it's gone out this evening.
I don't see Belinda, but one of the things that we're doing is we're surveying all of our employees to see what the actual number might be. We know how many people are currently paying tuition, but we have no idea how many people might decide to come if there was no tuition. The feedback that I've gotten from some of the county elected officials is, if it applies to school employees, then why would it not apply to county employees? So I think there are a lot of doors that we need to explore. I certainly don't disagree with you. When I've said multiple times that, you know, it's the first district I've ever been in where we charge tuition, and philosophically I don't like the idea. So I look forward to discussion, but at this point in time, I think it's important to establish the rate with the understanding that we'll have additional discussions down the road.
Mr. McLaughlin?
Dr. Linney, in regards to this, my understanding from the work session that this discussion can come back soon. This is not something that has to wait a year to come back before we can discuss it again?
No, sir. The agreement I think that we had, or consensus that we had, was that we would establish the rate today, and then I would be working during the rest of February and early March to come back with a report to you in March, at the March work session, about what the county's position is, what WCEA's official position is, and what the potential cost is associated with it.
But would that allow us then, yet this year, what would affect teachers this year, or would it have to wait an entire school year before we could come back and look at it with that information?
Yes, sir. If we get information and the county commission supports the reduction in funding associated with that, then this is something that could take in effect, any change could take in effect for the 2013-14 school year.
Okay. Yeah, I would have to agree with Mr. Peterson. I think that this is something that we definitely need to look at. I can support this tonight, but I think we definitely need to look at this, and we do want to encourage people out of town, the best of the best, and so I agree with that.
Ms. Vogt?
I'm comfortable moving forward with this, but one of my concerns has been how teachers that reside in Williamson County may interpret this, if it could be construed to be some kind of additional benefit to people living externally. And I think that's been brought up before. So that's why I would definitely want to know what the union, the WCEA, thinks about this. So I'm comfortable at this point moving forward with this, but I'm very concerned about how other teachers may interpret this.
Yes, ma'am, and if I could add, just for clarity's sake, this is a benefit, and so let's assume there was no fee associated to the employee for bringing their children. it would still be a tax-deductible benefit, and instead of paying the LEA the money, they would be paying the IRS the money because it's a taxable benefit. And so, is that correct, Ms. Holman?
No.
Okay, I'm not right.
Correct.
Correct.
I did say something at the work session that it could be, and when I was researching it this afternoon, we just got a new thing on fringe benefits, and it included K-12 that if the institution, which is what we are, offer no a reduced rate or no rate to its employees, it would not be a taxable fringe.
Okay, well, that's good news.
Yeah.
Different than what I understood. Thank you.
Mr. Wimberly?
Dr. Looney, considering the fact that we're obviously struggling with this, and as you said, there are more doors to explore, why is it so important that we go ahead and set the rate?
It's a very fair question. The families that I've discussed would like to know if there is a tuition, what is the tuition going to be? Because many of our families have to plan well in advance. And so this is what I consider to be worst case scenario. We know that what the tuition rate is going to be. We can work to reduce it or eliminate it, but this is what the rate is going to be, minus some change from the board. So I think it's better to notify people now and establish a rate formally rather than speculation.
Thank you.
Mr. Welch?
Thank you, Ms. Anderson. I also think this is a great conversation to have, and we should talk about this a little bit more. But as we discussed in our work session, we were going to have these conversations additionally. This is not the, if passed tonight, this is not the end-all, be-all of this conversation. In fact, there seemed to be agreement around the board completely that we would carry on these conversations. The point of it is that for these families, to give them the opportunity that here is the rate so you can begin to plan for it. I know a $3,900 expense in my family, of course, that's something that we would need to budget and plan for. Unfortunately, I'm not at the point in my life where I can just write a check for that at a moment's notice. Would love to be there. I also want to clarify kind of one of the arguments against this. We keep talking about the opportunity to attend. Our teachers do have the opportunity to attend. That is a benefit. Just because it's not a free benefit doesn't mean that it's not an opportunity to attend. So I think we need to be very careful how we're framing this right now. Teachers who do not live in our county, do not teach in our public schools, do not have that opportunity. So I think we need to be very accurate about that. Finally, the kind of last thing I want to talk about is I do agree that this can be a very useful recruitment tool for finding the top-notch teachers. I know a few weeks back we all were receiving a lot of correspondence about how as a district we weren't able to hire and retain successful football coaches because of the compensation levels we had. But you look around our district and we've got 3 head coaches that have won state championships. So it doesn't really bear out. But if you dig a little bit deeper, each of those coaches has children in our public schools. And I just don't think that that's a coincidence. And so just as that's a benefit to allowing us to attract top-notch coaches, I see this as a great benefit to allow us to hire those top-notch teachers as well. So in that, I'm in agreement with you. I would like to have this conversation a little bit more, but I think we're well-intentioned, but actually doing a disservice to our teachers tonight if we don't pass this and at least tell them this is the current plan, this is the baseline, this is what you need to prepare for. But we will continue to have the conversations. There's no one who's going to be negatively impacted by saying, guess what? We're going to put more money in your bank account. But there will be teachers that are going to be negatively impacted if we don't allow them to plan, to prepare, and to know what that cost will be. So I would really encourage all of us to pass this, and then we can continue our conversations in our work session when we do have all the information, which we don't have right now. We don't know how many other county employees will be part of it. We don't know how many additional teachers. We don't know how we're going to handle all the capacity issues as schools get overcrowded. How does that impact feeder patterns? There's a lot of moving parts with this. And so we just shouldn't make decisions quickly and irrationally because we want to do the right things, but we haven't done our homework first. We've seen how that turns out, and it's not good.
Ms. Hammond?
Oh, thank you, Ms. Chairman. Actually, Mr. Wembley asked my question.
Okay.
Thank you.
Thank you. Mr. Hullett?
Yes, ma'am. Thank you. Just one more thing that I'd like to bring up, that although I'll vote for this because I do believe we do need to put it out there because it's the plan we have, and we need to make sure that folks are prepared, like we're all saying. The thing that is, when I taught in the district, I was blessed and lucky enough, as I, obviously am now, because I'm in this chair, to live in the district. My wife teaches, Ken's wife teaches, and, my friends who were also teachers who did not live in the district, who wanted their kids to come here, it's quite an expense on a teacher's salary. It's a huge expense. And I've got to tell you that every time that either while I was teaching or while I'm in this chair now, when someone brings up that conversation to me about how much of an expense it is, I feel for them. And not once when I was teaching did I think, oh my goodness, you're getting a benefit that I'm not. I thought, I wish your kids could go here. My kids go here. And I think that we just worry about what a minority of folks are going to worry about if someone gets this or doesn't get that. And if you're worrying about that, you're worrying about the wrong thing. And that's just, I agree that it'll be a good thing when we come back and revisit this soon, but I do agree with what most everyone has said. We just need to go ahead and get it out there so folks can prepare for it.
Mr. Peterson?
I can appreciate what the thoughts of everybody. Mike, can you just, based on what we talked about the work session, what other school districts in our area, or what counties in our area charge their teachers? Based on the information that we received from Ms. Holman.
Well, I'm going to have to rely on my trustee partner, Mrs. Holman. Ms. Holman,
Okay.
can you remind me? I think there is one or two, or there are one or two, but we're not the norm for sure.
Okay.
Well, locally around us, none of them charge the employees except for Franklin Special does charge part-time employees a prorated rate, and they charge per student. But Wilson, Franklin Special, Metro, Rutherford, Murfreesboro, and Murray do not charge.
Okay. So with that being said, it's difficult for me to sit here and think that, we're in a position to do, the idea of it just being down to money. Ultimately, the rate has been established. I mean, it's in the public, it's been printed. If we're as a board saying that we're going to adopt a rate, it's kind of hard to go back and say, well, we don't want that rate any longer. I understand the idea of having additional conversations. I'm opposed to it because I'm opposed to the rate, 100%. I don't believe there should be a rate. That's all I want to say. Appreciate it.
Is there anyone else that wishes to speak before we vote? Ms. Hammond?
Just would like to ask Dr. Looney a question. So let's say we did not vote for this rate tonight. What does that mean, actually? And can you speak to that?
Well, I'll go back to the board norms. The agreement, the operating agreement that we have is during the work session, if somebody wants to pull something from the agenda, that we agree to do it there and agree to work on it. What I took away from the work session was that we agreed to have this on the agenda for a vote tonight to establish the rate, and with the full understanding that we could surprise our employees by reducing or eliminating the rate in the future, even if it's for the upcoming school year. So, just to be consistent with how we've done business, I think in good faith, I would encourage you to vote one way or another, your conscience, on this matter. I am opposed to charging our teachers rate enrollment as well, but just because I philosophically am opposed to it doesn't mean practically that can happen. So I am more than willing to continue working on this issue, but we have business to accomplish, and this establishes the rate, worst case scenario, and it establishes the rate for people that are prospective residents of Williamson County too. So we've always voted on those two rates together. This is the time of year that we vote on those rates. I would encourage us to vote on it, and hopefully there is a solution that we can come up with. This board doesn't do this part of this business in a vacuum. There's another elected body that has to grapple with at least $180,000 in reduction in the funds and potentially more. And so we have some conversations to be held, and that's no small amount of money. So.
Anyone else that wishes to speak before we vote? Are we ready to vote?
Your vote is 10 yes, 1 no, 1 abstain.
Motion passes. That concludes the business that's before this body this evening. If there are no further announcements, this meeting is adjourned. Thank you very much for being here this evening.
Thank you, principals and employees, for coming. Good to see you.